You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Well, what can you say, ladies and gentlemen? The opera singer has spoken. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. We certainly appreciate you guys being part of the big show. We couldn't do it without you guys, because if we didn't have you guys as an audience, we'd just be sitting here talking to ourselves, which is what I do on Fridays. I talk to the wall and my 7 other personalities. The judge says I can't talk to anymore. But don't tell him I'm my parole officer, because I want to get the ankle bracelet off. Anyway, guys, we're going to be learning a ton of great stuff. And as always, that's what we do here on the Chris Voss Show. We learn great stuff. And we have the most amazing authors, people who come on the show, and they share with us their knowledge, stuff they spent sometimes hundreds of thousands of hours, sometimes a lifetime studying. And they bring it to you in an hour synopsis and give it to you, this juicy piece of steaming, wonderful, glorious, scrumptious goody. I don't know what it sounds. I'm thinking of Thanksgiving. I must be hungry. And they set it before you so that you can indulge in it and nourish your mind, your body, and your soul. And we have one of those authors on today as well. But in the meantime, we need you to do one thing for us. Just one thing. That's all we ask. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Refer your family, friends, and relatives over to all the plugs. YouTube.com/Chris Voss. LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. And Goodreads.com. Goodreads. Chris Voss one on the TikTok. She's the author of the newest book that's just come out, Take No Shit. Build better relationships through discovering, creating, and maintaining healthy boundaries in 3, sometimes 5, simple steps. Heather Kloss is on the show with us today. We'll ask her if she's related to the Santa, since Christmas is coming up, and some of you have been very bad boys and girls, so we're going to have a look into that and see what we need to do there if we can get back on the list. Maybe she can help us. Heather has lived a very atypical life. She's hitchhiked across the country, traveled, and worked in a carnival for a season. It's probably when she was kidnapped, hijacking across the country. We'll find out how that works. She roamed New York City with street people. She explored and taught alternative lifestyles and more. And all of her experience thus far have led her to believe that boundaries, I say, are the key to not only saving ourselves, but our relationships. She's a big fan of amazing people, enjoying love, sex, and romance in happy and functional lives. What a weird thing to come up with. Why would you want to be happy? Whatever that might look like from human to human, which is why she is thrilled to share her experience and knowledge of boundaries with us. Welcome to the show, Heather. How are you?
I am wonderful, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. Give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
My.curiouser.life.
There you go. My.curiouser.life. So just a fun fact to get out of the way real quick, because it's piqued my curiosity. When you hitchhike across the country, were you kidnapped and that's why you had to work in the carnival for a season, or was this voluntary?
No, it was totally voluntary. It was a teenage hijink, and I own it. Had a great time, learned a lot about humanity in a few short months, and lived to tell the tale.
There you go. A lot of people don't with the hitchhiking thing, evidently. So I'm glad you made it. So give us a 30,000 overview of your new book that you put out. Take No Shit, damn it. Or it's just Take No Shit. I added the damn it part.
So Take No Shit is all about building better boundaries in order to create more functional relationships. There are 3, sometimes 5 simple steps. The first 3 are step 1, set your boundaries. That's the internal work, figuring out what your boundaries are. Step 2, say it. Communicate your boundaries. Step 3, review it. How did that go, communicating your boundaries? Did it affect change or not? Step 4, which is optional because things might already be fixed, right? Step 4 would be repeat it. Say what you need to say again, maybe in a different way, have a different conversation, whatever. And then quite possibly step 5, which is change. Change what you're willing to accept, change your relationship, change.
There you go. I'm shocked at how many people don't know what boundaries are. Especially men in today's world. Like men, especially married men, seem to have no idea what boundaries are and how to maintain them from a masculine frame.
Yeah.
And I'm always just shocked when I bring it up to people and they're like, what's a boundary? I think maybe women have a better understanding of it than men. That's just my pulling. But what do you find? Do you find that a lot of people really understand what boundaries are, or is this something we really need a lot more education on?
I think that men and women have different challenges with boundaries. So, like a lot of people have challenges, like they're really good with their work boundaries, maybe, but not great with their interpersonal boundaries, or they're really good with their family, but they're not good with their new significant other. So I think everybody has challenges with boundaries in different ways. And that's the key, is that also what your boundaries are going to look like and what my boundaries are going to look like are going to be radically different, because we're two different humans. We're trying to protect and prioritize different things in our lives. And we want to have less of different things in our lives. So what you're going to use to protect those things and what you're going to use to keep those things out is going to be different than what I'm going to use.
Okay. So what is a boundary? Let's lay a foundation for that. What is a boundary specifically?
So a boundary is a line between the things that I want to prioritize and protect in my life and the things that I want less of, don't want, or are none of my business. So as the saying goes, outside my boundaries, not my monkeys, not my circus. Inside my boundaries, these are my monkeys. This is my circus.
Well, it sounds like this house on Thursdays. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like my underwear on Fridays. I don't know what that means either. But boundaries, why is it important that we set them? Why do we need them?
Well, especially in relationships, we have been bombarded with this messaging that, two must become one. Right. So we end up with this whole, we got to do everything together. We're attached at the hip. We have to be in lockstep. We have to be in, group think, whatever. And let's be honest, that's why so many relationships fail, right? It's not possible over the long term to be continuously integrated like that. So with boundaries, the goal is to understand who we are as individuals, bring those individuals to a relationship, and then co-create or collaborate a relationship in what I call the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is a Venn diagram, big circle. This is what you want. This is what I want. Where they overlap, that's the sweet spot, right? So if you want to go fishing on Saturdays with your buddies and drink beer and shoot targets, more power to you. That's not for me. That's not part of our sweet spot, right? However, we might enjoy, hiking the mountains together or checking out new food places or whatever that is. That's a sweet spot. And understanding how we can live our best lives as individuals and have a relationship that serves us both. That is the key.
There you go. I love that concept because to me, I've never really been into the we merge as one. I mean, yeah, maybe you're on the same team, in a marriage or something like that, but still, you want people to grow as an individual and be their own person so they can be happy. There's a lot of people I think that go, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of people that seem to go into relationships where it's like, I just lost myself in the relationship. It's like, how did you lose yourself in the relationship? And I think that's maybe what you're talking about. They tried to fold it into each other and merge it into each other. And to me, that's just boring as fuck. That's my new book coming out, Boring as Fuck, Relationships, 2024. Stay tuned. But which is probably why I'm still single. These boundaries thing, a lot of people don't hear about them. And how do we use boundaries for behavior that's problematic? I know I use boundaries for behavior, or, like you talked about how maybe, I don't want something around me that's not my monkeys. Like if you're going to come talk to me about some stupid meme politics or something, you're horribly uneducated, and when I really don't want to have a conversation with you. And so I'll create a boundary and say, hey, we're not here to have conversations with idiots. No, I don't say that. I say we're not here to talk about politics. But that's the code word. But sometimes you have people that you've got to set a lot of boundaries for. There's a lot of monitoring that has to go on with them.
Yes.
And trying to get them to hold their behavior. How do you deal with people like that? And how do you react when your boundaries are crossed, or how should you react when your boundaries are crossed, or when people test the fence, if you will?
So in personal relationships, what I say is that if somebody is consistently pushing on your boundaries, and you, as you said, need to monitor them constantly, that sounds to me like an untenable relationship. I am not your keeper. I am not your jailer. I am not your mother. I am not here to keep you on the straight and narrow. Like that is not my job. That's a boundary, right? Like I am not here to make you behave like you love me.
Yeah.
Right? Or like you respect what I have to say. That's not what I'm here for.
Yeah. Plus it's a tenet of respect, right?
Absolutely.
For men, respect is a big thing. I don't tolerate disrespect from no one. I don't care. And so when someone's constantly pushing your boundaries, or testing the boundary and seeing if you're for real, it really can get annoying sometimes, because you're just like, you don't respect me. Yeah, it's draining, because I like what you said. I don't have time to babysit my boundaries. If you can't respect them, I don't have time to babysit you. I mean, not you specifically, but the people that break my boundaries. So how do you deal with those people that do you just have to eject them from your life?
Well, there's a lot of different things. When it comes down to, first you say whatever it is. So, hey, Chris, I don't love it when you call me sweet tits, right? Please.
I'm sorry. I
don't call me sweet tits. Like that's what my ex called me. It just, the feelings are complicated, right? Not positive. And so if you cared about what I had to say or whatever, would probably be like, well, dang, we don't want you thinking of your ex when we're together. So I'm not calling you sweet tits anymore, right? Done and dusted. That is an ideal.
Yeah.
Now, let's say sweet tits is like your favorite pet name ever. So you're feeling a little like defensive maybe about like not using that, especially because it's kind of habitual. And so you push back a little bit and you're like, sweet tits, come on, it's just sweet tits. It's silly. Lots of people say that it's just a phrase. There's nothing to worry about, right? So that's where I go, and I'm like, well, I'm reviewing this and that didn't go as well as I'd like it to go.
Note to self, tell my girlfriend to quit calling me sweet tits.
And then, so the idea then would be, okay, is it worth it to me to have this conversation again and be more clear with you? Or at that point, do I just want to change the access that we have to each other? Or do I really, and there's always the possibility of me saying, you know what? This is on me. This is my trauma, and it's not really that big a deal. So I'm just going to give up being upset about it. That is also taking control from inside my boundaries, right? I can change my mind. I can do specific self-work and say, you know what? He keeps leaving dishes by the sink. I end up having to do those dishes. Instead of putting them in the dishwasher and it just being automatic, I have to rinse them off. I have to put them in the dishwasher. And yet, if I think about it, I have to do all the dishes in my house if I'm single, right?
That's true.
And on top of it, I would miss doing his dishes, right? I would miss not having him around. If that were the big thing that broke us up, I would feel like an asshole, right?
Yeah.
So you can change what you get upset about as well. Maybe not all of the time. And you should never try to make somebody else change what they get upset about. But the power of having boundaries is we can choose our boundaries and what we are willing to accept and what we are absolutely not willing to accept. What are we willing to say, you know what, that's not that big a deal, and what are absolute non-compromisables?
And I like what you said there, that sometimes you can look at your own boundary or why you feel that you're feeling the need to set a boundary, and maybe it is a personal trauma or is some sort of personal thing, and maybe it is good to take a hard look at that and go, oh, why am I making a big deal of this? Is it really is this the hill I want to die on, sort of thing?
Yeah.
I like the other aspect too. You kind of alluded to it, I think, where basically, the first thing I do when I set a boundary and someone crosses it, I ask myself, and I do this with leadership and running companies, I kind of get used to it. I ask myself, did I communicate it effectively? Mm-hmm. And so I have to revisit the second time, as you mentioned, and say, okay, I think we had a conversation about this, and maybe I didn't communicate effectively, or just maybe you're a fucking idiot. But no, I don't say that. I think that though. But maybe I need to communicate this better, and then I make sure that's laid down. So it's two times you got your warning shot across the bow. Don't cross the line anymore. And
if it's a huge habitual behavior, though,
yeah,
like if they said they're going to quit smoking, and they quit, and then it came back, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it takes a little more. Part of what you get to determine as part of your boundaries is how much are you willing to take. The key is to say, I am making this choice, not they are forcing me to put up with it. Right? I am choosing, I will give this 6 months. I will give everything I have to this relationship for the next 6 months or a year or whatever it is. And I will see what we can do to improve it. And then I'll make a decision and mark it in your calendar, have the alarms go off, and then you make the decision.
Now, why does setting healthy boundaries make better relationships? Why do they create, better simpatico between human beings?
Because humans have a hard time knowing when to speak up, right? Like this little thing annoys us. We're like, oh, I really like this person. I don't want to say anything. But once that whole honeymoon period wears off, that little thing plus all the other, 1,012 other little things that we just sort of let slide, those are going to come raging back and create resentment and bitterness and distance and annoyance. Like that whole, a joke I used to make is that, well, I still make it. Sex, when it's good, is 20% of the relationship. When it's bad or not happening at all, it's 80% of the relationship.
Wait.
And that's when you start really getting in arguments about whether the toilet paper roll is on the correct way, or the seat was left up, or the dishes were left by the sink instead of in the dishwasher. Not just sex, but when you start to feel too entangled and you're not like super rose-colored glasses anymore, right? You need to start asserting your independence and figuring out what the relationship looks like once you're not like in bed all the time.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that whole thing works out? So boundaries are super important, and we're coming up on, Thanksgiving and Christmas time. A lot of people have, those fights at Christmas, conversations at Christmas. Sometimes you have to set boundaries like, I'm sorry, Uncle Joe, you can't hug me as long as you want, and I'm not sitting on your lap. I've had a lot of girlfriends who have an Uncle Joe like that. Like, I hate going, Uncle Joe always hugs me, and he hugs me really weird to get. Anyway, and I'm like, wow, okay, so we don't have to go. I mean, we can go get some dinner at a Chinese restaurant if I don't care. But sometimes there's conversations that are going to take place that you're always going to have the political sides of whatever, and then you're going to have some controversy. Nutball Uncle Joe is going to come in and tell you about how, I don't know, John F. Kennedy's running the presidency or some crap, and you're just like, we're just trying to eat turkey here, man. We're just trying to eat turkey and just get along and love each other, and so these are some good things to have. But I think you're right. You mentioned earlier a lot of people are like, I'll just let it slide. She's hot, or maybe women think he's hot. I don't know how women think. But he's a keeper. Okay. So you're like, no big deal. I'm just going to let go. But then all of a sudden, and then you feel like a dick because you've got to finally say, hey, that thing that you're always doing, that actually bugs the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
And then you feel like a jerk because that person's going, well, you pretend like you liked it this whole time for 6 months. And you're just like, no, I really didn't like it. Or it's actually kind of growing on me. And then, and so people are reluctant to set boundaries over that, correct?
Yeah, people are super reluctant to do that because, okay, I've got a chapter in my book that is literally, it's not your fault, right? We are raised to do what our parents say. We're raised to do what our teachers say. We are raised to, follow the rules and get along to go along and, keep your trap shut. Don't make waves, all of these things. And depending on like the culture you were raised in or whatever, it's going to be different variations of that. But overall, nearly all of us have been raised to have craptaculous boundaries. And then even worse, when we get into our first relationships, young love, right? Where we don't know squat about how to have a relationship. And so we say to our first partner, hey, I really don't like it when you do. What do you mean? Don't you love me anymore? Oh, if you really loved me, you wouldn't say things like that, right? So not only do we learn for that relationship not to say things like that, but then all of us carry that trauma, little t, not capital T, but carry that trauma forward into all of our other relationships. Well, gosh, maybe I shouldn't bring that up because then they're going to feel like I don't love them. And then we're going to have this long drawn out conversation and it's going to suck and we're going to cry and we're both going to feel bad. So I'm just not even going to say that until such a time as it all builds up to a freaking mighty explosion inside my brain. And suddenly we're in the middle of a dumpster fire.
Yep. Suddenly you're buying a shovel and bag of lye and digging a ditch in the backyard. Wait.
Going out to visit the pig farm.
Wait. Yeah. Wow. Okay. You went there. There you go.
Yes, hi. I'm a fan.
Do people know where your ex-boyfriends are? I'm just curious. They've been in public lately? Anyway, but no, you're really right. I think men, I see it from a man's perspective because I've been a man. Last time I checked, I've been a man. Hopefully
makes sense.
And so I don't, I know what a man's experience is. And then I have a lot of dude friends, husband types that, walked into that whole, what do they call it, prison? No, I mean marriage. Anyway, I do the jokes, people. And they have these attitudes of happy wife, happy life, let it roll, make her happy. It bugs the crap out of me. Yeah, she disrespects me. Yeah, I fail shit tests, but happy wife, happy life. And then it's just this slow roll into a hellscape. And then when I hang out, I'm like, you're letting that go on? Like, I would never tolerate that in a million years. Like, she'd be on a space shuttle to Mars right now. Somebody talks to me that way. But a lot of guys have the problem setting boundaries. Like most men I talk to are like, "What's the boundary?" And I'm like, "Dude, this is why this is why your wife hasn't had sex with you in 10 years." It's really important to set boundaries, especially as a man. I think women look for that sort of, they look for a man who stands up for himself and can set boundaries and can provide structure in an alpha frame where he can say, hey, this isn't cool with me. I don't think women like a man who's a pushover. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I think humans in general. So one of the functions of boundaries is not just to keep out what you don't want, but to maintain your energy and resources for the things that are a priority to you. Right? So if you look at it from that standpoint, it is really hard to be passionate about somebody who can't bring it. And if they are, as you said, like a doormat, then they're not bringing it, right? They're not bringing the passion to you. You're not bringing the passion to them. It's all a big muddle. It's hard to be passionate about somebody that you feel like you have to like mother.
Yeah.
Or, check their phone to make sure they're not doing what they were doing last week. Or, like this is where it all goes to hell.
Yeah.
We start giving in on these little things that really, in the long run, don't matter. We start giving up on that time with our besties. We start giving up on the outdoor activities that fill us up in order to make somebody else happy. But the thing is, when we met, we were filling ourselves up. And so now we're doing that. Oh, well, I don't want you going on that trip this weekend. Well, yes, you know what? You are going to miss me. And when I come back, we'll have some amazing sex because you missed me and I'll miss you. Right. And because I'll go fill myself up in the outdoors, breathing in mountain air on a hike or whatever with the dudes. And I'll come back and be excited to see you.
There you go.
This is the type of thing that people miss, this individuality in relationships. Like and even with kids, how do you and I collaborate on creating the best life possible for each of us?
And people are so much better off if they can go refill their cups outside of the relationship. Like you said, they can miss each other. But I've had friends that I'm like, hey, are we golfing anymore? No, the wife says I can't golf anymore. There's honeydews at home, and she doesn't like that I'm out hanging out and just doing whatever. Which belies insecurity in their relationship where she doesn't trust him or something. And
it's entirely possible that there's a reason for her not to trust him. Possibly. Right? Like we don't know what started that whole downhill slide. I mean, it could be she has trauma from past relationships. It could be he's a dick. But ultimately, let's turn this around to her. She's doing herself a disservice, making her his mommy, his jailer. That's not going to lead to passion and fire and deep love and trust.
Yeah. Because once you turn a woman from, your passionate lover to where she's your mom, she takes on a matriarchal role. And then she doesn't have a sexual attraction to you anymore. That's what a lot of guys don't realize when you do that whole, I want my wife to be my mom. And anytime one of my friends' wives is like, I have 5 kids at home, they have 4 kids and, they call the husband the 5th kid. I'm just like, oh my God, that sounds like an awful situation.
And it feels so disrespectful.
Yeah. And if I were a girlfriend who'd joke about that, it'd probably be a boundary fence going up real quick. Yeah, we never going to have a conversation here.
But you know what? We're socialized like that. Yeah. Right? We watch TV shows where this is normal behavior and there's a laugh track and people are like, oh, ha, 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 ha. Right? And everybody's like, ooh, that's so jolly. Look at these silly humans. Look at this man just being a kind of galumph and going through life. And look at her just getting things done and being the power person.
You talk about stop begging for what you want and need. Do you find a lot of people that should be setting boundaries are doing a lot of begging? Is that kind of a sign that people can look for and go?
Think about these guys that we're talking about, think about are they getting the sexy times that they need in their relationships? And how much of what they do you think is them begging by giving up their boundaries to get more of that, never realizing that they're actually almost assuring they're going to get less?
Pretty much. Yeah, it's a cycle.
And it's the same thing. Let me just turn this around. It's the same thing with women, right? Because many of us will often go into a relationship, and men do this too, like these cross genders. We're going generalizations here, but some men will do this too, in that they will give love and affection and caretaking in the hopes of getting that kind of passion and feeling of belonging back. But the thing is when somebody is giving you that feeling of belonging only by doing the things they want and not actually filling you up with all of the other things, that's when you start in this, what I call a control or be controlled relationship pattern. I want to get you to do this for me, and in return, I will do this for you. And that leads to covert contracts.
That's covert contracts. I love this, man. You could write a whole book on that thing.
Yes. And I do talk about covert contracts in the book for sure, because that's it's sort of like a boundary blackmail. I did this for you, therefore you can't complain, when I ask you to do this for me. Yep.
I hate that stuff. I'm very good at picking it up. I've kind of learned the hard way too about it, but I'm really good at like, wait, what? What's going on? What did I agree to? I'll hear something on the slide. Oh, okay, we're going to read on that. I'm like, what? What do we agree on? I'm really good at tracking this stuff down. I've learned the hard way over the years. I had somebody pull a contract thing on me the other day on LinkedIn. They sent me a spam message going, hey, and I guess they're connected with me so they can keep sending spam messages. And they sent me some spammy message. I just ignored it because I got better things to do. And then the guy wrote back a couple days later and he said, hey, I didn't hear back from you on this spam message I sent you. But hey, so I don't contact you again. Can you just let me know either way if you're interested? And I was pissed. I was like, did you just fucking put a contract on me that extorts me, where if I don't answer you back to giving you yes or no, then you're just going to keep fucking harassing me? Are you fucking out of your fucking mind?
You know where that happens a lot?
Where?
Dating sites. Like, they'll send a message, right? And you're off doing life.
Yeah, you're doing life.
And then they'll send another message like, an hour later, and you're doing life. And then they'll send another message. And this is primarily dudes to like me, then they'll be like, well, I see that, you just don't have the time to respond to me. And I was just trying to be nice. You're not really all that attractive anyway. See you next Tuesday.
So aggressive. Right? Passive. Is that passive aggressive or aggressive? It's passive. The backhanding part of it.
On the plus side, every time I get a message like that, I'm like, thank you so much for showing me exactly who you are.
Yeah. It's a good flush out when that happens. I have the opposite, where women will say to me, how come you're not like the other guys that don't just sit there and hump my leg and text message me 5,000 times a day? And it's like, I'm making money and I got shit to do and my life's purpose. And, I don't, we'll go out when we go out. And if and when you find just the right connection, it'll work. You'll either have more time or they'll be perfect with your, circumstances, and it'll find its way to work. At this point, I'll be single forever, but that
is also a choice.
But no, it's funny. But like you say, dating sites. I've seen people freak out. What was that old movie that I thought was really funny? You're So Fucking Money, and the guy gets the girl's number, and his buddy tells him, don't call that thing for 48 hours. And he calls her, and then he leaves like 50,000 messages.
Yeah.
That's what that kind of reminds me of. But yeah, boundaries are so important. People need to realize that. And I think in my opinion, men especially, I think women are more masters of relationships and better at, I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm giving it too much credit, but I think they're better at relationships.
I've been in dating and relationships since the early 2000s. I used to ghostwrite for pickup artists and so on and so forth. I've seen this from both sides. In fact, I've seen it from the entire spectrum of gender, sexuality, orientation, whatever. Pretty much everyone is crap at boundaries.
Well, this is why they all need your book.
Pretty much everyone. Absolutely. Every single person in the world needs to buy this book for sure. I mean, I'm not biased or anything, but I wrote it for a reason. And when it comes right down to it, we all know probably one person. Most of us know just one person, unless we've got really, really good boundaries ourselves. But most of us know that one person who always seems to be able to speak their mind comfortably, be entirely authentic about who they are. They show up. They always have energy for the people that they're with, because that is their priority right this moment. They never say yes when they don't mean it, right? Like, they are there with you because they want to be there with you.
Yeah, you describe what an asshole I am.
Who have good boundaries.
Yeah, to me, it's so important, and I'm really wary of stuff like those secret contracts you mentioned and silent contracts or whatever. I'm really wary of that stuff. I'm really aware. I've had all sorts of people pull stuff with me, and as you know from the singles market, you meet a lot of people, and there's always people that try and play you or capture you or try and they get in your head or shit test or another thing as a man you have to get really used to, and you have to sit there and go, okay, wait, now why people always talk about how men we're always so quiet and we think about things and we take our time answering shit. It's because we're trying to figure out where it's coming from, why it's coming, and we're like, okay, so what's this about? And what are my options? And what do I have to lose? But boundaries are so important, especially when it comes to respect. For men, respect is a big deal. It's almost bigger than sex. Really, sex is a part of paying respect to us, and respecting and love to us. Respect is like really intertwined with love to us. And I see so many men, I can't speak for women because I'm not a woman, but I see so many men that don't set boundaries, and they have that happy wife, just make her happy. I'm sure it'll be fine. And meanwhile, their wives are just crapping all over them. Oh, one thing I wanted to speak to is people can't see this on Amazon, but the back of your book has boundaries are a. I'll set that up for you. What is it?
So boundaries are a shit shield.
And you have a picture of an umbrella with shit raining down. You got to see the animation, boys and girls. But yeah, you've got a picture of an umbrella and shit's raining down. I love this. It's a shit shield.
It is. It's an otter wearing Victorian clothing, holding an umbrella with little poops hanging, raining down on the umbrella. And that's a funny story, because when I started writing this book, part of the research I did, since I had been, a decade and a half into having set my boundaries and learning to live my life boundaryful, I started interviewing people through all walks of life about their boundaries. And I wanted to find out more about the beginner's mindset again. I wanted to find out about people in different stages, what types of boundary challenges people have had. A lot of these people and examples are actually in the book. Wow. And one of the people that I spoke to, we were talking, and she said, my therapist called boundaries a shit shield. And I said, aha! Right? Like, that's it. It's so true. Like you can literally, like one of those big clear police shields, people are just throwing it at you and you see it splat and then run down, and it is not affecting you at all. Okay. There you go.
You got me with the imagery on that. That got right into my head. The splat part. But you're sick of people's shit. So you say, hey man, we got to set up some boundaries here. And And how do you sell boundaries? How do you explain to people that this is not only healthy for them, but it's really healthy for you? And I've had to explain to sometimes to people that, hey, I had some trauma in my life, and I have some, and I think I've dealt with most of it, but I don't deal well with people gaslighting me, and I certainly do better with it than I ever have before. But I don't like dishonest people. I don't like people that don't have fucking integrity. So anyway, I don't want them in my life. It may be based on my trauma, but I try and surround myself with uplifting people that are going someplace instead of having to lie through the world. And so, that's important to me, just from an aspect of good humanity or whatever you want to call it, good morals. But still, it will bug me if people lie to me consistently, because partially it triggers my trauma a little bit, but also I go, you're full of shit. And I don't want people around me that are full of shit, because I'm full of shit, and that's my job. But
you're a professional at it.
I'm a professional full of shitters. So you won't catch me, but I'll catch you.
Did you bullshit today?
See how that works.
No. Did you try to bullshit today? Yes.
What movie is that from?
History of the World, Part 1.
That's right. That's what a great reference. So, how do you communicate to people that this is healthy? Because like you say, early in the show, you talked about how people play it off like, oh, come on, I'm just using a term that's funny, and I'm just being cute and flirty, and and you're like, no, that really hurts me or offends me or bothers me. How do you communicate with them effectively how important it is for you, so that they kind of go, oh wow, I can empathize with that makes you feel?
So I would say there's two parts to that answer. One part is, and I'm gonna brag a little bit. So Heather Shannon is a therapist, and she wrote the foreword for my book, and she had amazing, glowing things to say. And one of the things she said, after saying all these wonderful things about me, is, unless you think that I'm too easy to please, I don't like 90% of what's said out there about boundaries, because it's so aggressive and it focuses so much in on conflict. So, which takes me to the second part of it. First, you have to know kind of how to say something. Right? So that you're actually communicating with the other person, not just talking at them.
You mean I can't scream at them?
I mean,
respect my boundaries.
But how well do you listen to what other people have to say when they're screaming at you?
Wait, I have to do that?
Right? Yeah.
Oh man, this is too much work. Yeah, I don't know about this.
And then the second half of this is, I have a chapter in my book called The Other Side, Ethics, where I talk about ethics and boundaries being two sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. And the best way to live a life where your boundaries are honored is to work with others and encourage them to set boundaries and honor their boundaries. So when you're having these conversations, talk about not just, I can't stand this, but also, how about let's talk about the types of things that neither one of us want to experience within a conversation, right? And we build, instead of, because, a lot of people talk about, conflict and cooperation and what's the big one? Compromise.
Oh, compromise. Yeah. We can't.
I give a piece of me, you give a piece of you, and we both end up with less, right? How about let's look at collaborate or co-create. The container that we exist within. Mm-hmm. So gaslighting, for example, how about instead of saying, I don't ever want to be gaslit, let's talk about you and let's talk about honesty. Let's talk about validating each other. Let's talk about trying to understand each other. And if we ever feel like it's sliding, one of the things I talk about that I bring in from alternative lifestyles is the idea of safe wording. We have an agreed upon thing where one of us says, hey, don't love the way this conversation is going. We're both getting kind of emotional. Can we set this to the side? Maybe we'll email each other for the next couple of days while we're still even together, but we can like send emails with our thoughts on the topic that aren't super emotional and head up. And then we'll come back to this, Tuesday at dinner. And that way, what we're doing, again, the whole goal is how can you and I collaborate on creating the best life for both of us? Not how can I talk you into allowing me to do this shit that I want to do that you don't want to do.
Geez, you should do couples. You should do couples therapy.
So I do coaching one-on-one.
Well, there you go.
And I also have worked with couples who have had, a couple of challenges here and there.
Yeah.
And, this is the type of thing where people get caught in these traps, these patterns of relating to one another. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of ways to handle those, right? Like, therapy. That's absolutely, go to therapy, get yourself right. If you need to get your head put on right, whatever. Also, from where you are now, how do you take those steps forward to where you want to be? Right. And that's what I focus on, is what gets us from here to there. What would, instead of what would Jesus do, what would future me do?
I do what would Pontius Pilate do? So kill everyone's firstborn. Crucify. That's pretty much how I roll.
Yeah.
Especially when people cross my boundaries. But I'm going to learn so much. I think a lot of us are going to learn a lot from this. Give us your final plugs. Tell us how people can onboard with you for your coaching and different things, service you offer as we go out.
So My.curiouser.life. You can find links to the book on Amazon in all the different Amazons. You can find a link to my Daily Boundaries app for Apple and Android. You can find my Take No Shit workshop. You can find how to get coaching with me, either one-on-one or, like I said, if you are a couple and you'd like to do that, I'm here for that as well. And you can contact me through there. You can find social media through there. You can see a couple of videos of me through there. You can find out all the podcasts that I've been on through there. Really easy. My.curiouser.life.
There you go. I think you should go on TikTok shop because that's really huge right now. In fact, it's giving Amazon a run for the money. You should sell the boundary shit umbrellas. I think that'd be cool. You get like on the back of your book, they look like little Pringle cones, little diamonds. And so what you can do is you sell an umbrella and it says boundary on it, in big giant boundary word, or my boundary umbrella. And then it just has little stuck. I love it.
I agree. I definitely need to do this.
Yeah. And it's great PR too. You just walk down New York City with that thing and people are like, what is that? And you're like, buy the book. You'll find out. There you go. This is why they pay me $5 a day. So thank you very much for coming to the show. I think this is a real important topic for everybody. As you said, both men and women need to understand boundaries, and I think it would make relationships a whole lot better. But then where would I be if relationships were better? Because I've been single all my life. I mean, my dating pool would contract, so we can't have that. We need divorce lawyers in my life. So thank you very much for coming on, Heather. It's been fun to have you on as well. Thanks to my audience for tuning in. You go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss 1 on the Tickety Talkety. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.